Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, I got the latest Raiders news and rumors. If you're looking for an update around Maxx Crosby, the latest odds on Antonio Pearson, a insane tweet from Vincent Bonsignore at the very end of the show, you're in the right spot. Shout out to today's sponsor, Hexclad. And if you're trying to elevate your cooking game, especially during the holidays, Hexclad's the number one place that you need to go to. Go to hexclad.com/chatsports for 10% off. That link's going to be available to you all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. So coming up here on the Raiders Report, I have the picture, the latest on Maxx Crosby, his knee. If you don't know what this guy had to go through to play against Kansas City, it's going to blow your freaking mind. And then what are the odds that Antonio Pearson is going to be the Raiders head coach? That's all coming up right now. Let's first, though, talk about number 98. Show him some love. Spam 98 down below because he was doubtful to play against the Kansas City Chiefs with a knee injury. And one of my sources close to me said that Crosby was dealing with the flu all week, not knowing that it really wasn't the flu. He was literally sick from his knee injury. So basically what happened was he had a whole bunch of fluid build up in his knee. He ended up getting that drained. When he got that drained, the test ended up coming back because the fluid that was in his knee was packed with a bunch of bacteria. So then the hospital called and said, bro, that knee, it's not only injured, you got a lot of junk in there, which made Crosby felt like absolute crap. So on his podcast, this is what Crosby had to say. It was blowing up like a balloon. I woke up the next morning and almost passed out. I felt like I was dying. I was literally bedridden. I couldn't move. So the best picture that I could find of Maxx Crosby's knee was this one. And I mean, as you guys can see, like, this is his normal knee. That's not normal. That is a balloon if I've ever seen one for a knee. Like, not only was it super swollen and needed to get drained, there was also the bacteria, which then caused him to get sick, which was the reason why it was really, really scary and the reason why they didn't know if he was going to be out there. Dude was in the hospital just a few days before he went out there and brought down Patrick Mahomes. This is also what number 98 had to say. I had to go through all these requirements and show them that I could do anything. I told them I would do anything I can. I want to play. I mean, he's never missed a game in his NFL career, and going up against the biggest rival you got, you knew that Crosby was going to do everything that he possibly could to get out there on the field. And that's why I said Maxx Crosby is simply different. Maxx Crosby is everything, the definition of what being a true Raider is. And I know this right now. If I had a kid, I would tell my kid, hey, man, look at what Maxx Crosby does on a daily basis. That's a player to just model your entire game off of. That's a guy that you model what you do on a daily basis off of, because Crosby was the first player since 2020 to play despite being listed as doubtful. He played in 49 of 60 defensive snaps, and Crosby played before a bye week, which usually if there's like dealing with the type of injury, sometimes you sit out, but no, Crosby said, I'm not sitting out. So let me just say this very simple. Don't do it for me. Maxx Crosby is my favorite Raiders player because Crosby is what I think of is the epitome of what being a Raider is. Commitment to excellence. No days off. The definition. Dude literally got it tatted on his skin. If you don't show Maxx Crosby some love, I'm just going to point this point blank simple. Shame on you. Now, the bad news, or bad-ish news, I should say, around Crosby is in that podcast, he did mention that his knee is going to have to be addressed in the offseason, which, according to a source close to me, it's going to be a cleanup. So you're going to see it. It's going to happen in the offseason. Maxx Crosby is going to have to get some sort of cleanup on his knee. They're going to have to figure out what's maybe going on there to the extra level, but he's going to do it in the offseason. So he might not be 100% healthy for the rest of the season, but I'll take a 95% healthy Maxx Crosby over a lot of players. And I should also mention this. The fact that he's doing what he's doing, the fact that he's playing in the amount of snaps that he's doing, I wish the Raiders were better, and I feel like I say it every year, because the fact that he's not in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, it's shameful. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, I have the latest coaching odds around Antonio Pearson. And it's not like the typical coaching odds that we show here on the show. It's more of a interim head coaching standpoint. I saw an article put out there by The Athletic. So what I did is give my spin, give my opinion on a lot of the numbers that they released in a recent article. But like I said at the top of the show, shout out to today's sponsor, Hexclad, man. For people who watch this show a lot, you'll know that Jeremy Chuggs and I, we love to cook, and We love to eat, and if there are any guys out there that you're going to have to prepare your Christmas Day meal, your Hanukkah Day meal, whatever it is, I want you to elevate your cooking game during the holidays by going to hexclad.com/chatsports. So Hexclad has revolutionized the cookware industry with a hybrid pan that gives you all the convenience and cleanup of non-stick, the versatility of your grandma's cast iron, and a lifetime warranty just in case you find a way to destroy them. Raider Nation, go to hexclad.com/chatsports for 10% off. Hexclad truly checks every single box when it comes to picking your cookware. They are metal utensil safe, dishwasher safe, and oven safe up to 500 degrees. But hey, if you don't want to take my word for it because you're like, Mitch, I don't know how good of a cook you are. There's a guy, his name's Gordon Ramsay, and it's been on Chugs and I's bucket list to go out when we go to Las Vegas to get some of Gordon Ramsay's food. And personally, to me, if Ramsay's going to recommend it, I don't know if I have this quote on him, but I believe if Gordon Ramsay was up here right now, looking me dead in the eyes, he would say, anybody that doesn't use Hexclad is an idiot sandwich. Now, that's a made-up quote by me, but here's an actual quote around Gordon Ramsay and how much he freaking loves Hexclad. And if you're looking to get that perfect sear, if you're looking to get that perfect cook, this is what Ramsay had to say. The sear I can get with these pans is incredible. With absolutely no stick, the temperature control is utter perfection, and the cleanup is effortless. I love using Hexclad at home. So they're also the sexiest pans on the market. Score points at home. It's time to stop ordering delivery food and start cooking like a big boy with Hexclad. Real cuisine isn't made in the microwave. It's cooked in a Hexclad. For a limited time, get 10% off with our special link, hexclad.com/chatsports. That's 10% off at hexclad.com/chatsports. And I got to be real with y'all. I can't call a pan sexy unless I actually show it to you up here on screen. I mean this. This is a sexy pan, and Chugs is whispering in my ear, you should put that on your OnlyPans. I should put this on my OnlyPans. This is the type of content that the nation comes here for. Raiders, also cooking tips. Shout out to Hexclad for sponsoring the show. All right, coming up here, Antonio Pierce coaching odds. And again, it's not your typical odds. It's more of looking back at history. And we're going to hop into that time machine, and we're going to go back and look at all the interim head coaches since 2000. Before I show you that, though, I got a question for you, okay? Do you want Antonio Pierce to be the Raiders head coach next season? I want you to type yes, or I want you to type no. The number one question that I want you to answer from today's show is this one. Because unfortunately, for a lot of the people that are saying yes, if you're a believer in history or you go back and you look at history, point blank simple, if you answered yes, history is definitely not on your side, and it's not on Antonio Pierce's side because, well, I don't know if it's going to be the right move to do. So in terms of Antonio Pierce, this is what he had to say back on November 1st when he got introduced after the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. It said, "This is a great opportunity for myself. I am humbled, I am honored, and I don't take it lightly. I am sure there will be questions about why, how. This will all get answered, but this is about the players, this is about the Raiders, and this is about this organization." Then Antonio Pierce on November 27th, after a 2-2 start, said, "I've got 5 weeks to get it right. If I don't get right, I'll have a lot more time off." So Pierce understands that he's got to go out there and he's got to have succession, right? Like, he has to be able to prove to the nation, Mark Davis, and everyone that the Raiders have not only gotten better with Josh McDaniels, but they are also go out there and able to win some football games. So as you stand right now, you're 2-2. To me, there is no way that you can keep Antonio Pierce as your head coach unless you're able to have a winning record with him at the helm. And you don't have an easy slate of games. I'll tell you this, if you win 3 out of these next 2 games, or 3 out of the next 5, you go 3-2 out of these next 5, which then puts you at 5-4 overall, that's going to be an impressive number. The number that I wanted was 6-3. That might be a little bit of a tall task considering how difficult the end of your schedule is. But then again, if you want that job, you have to be able to put up and shut up. So in terms of keeping Antonio Pierce as a head coach, he's the 43rd interim coach taking over for a head coach that is either re-signed or was fired since 2000. I decided to keep the 2000 trend because you keep going farther and farther back in history, and I don't think it is as enlightening, if you will. 10 out of the previous 42 were promoted to head coach, so that is only a succession rate of 23.8. So 23.8% of interim head coaches get promoted to be head coach the following season. As we know, Rich Bisaccia was not one of them. So in terms of the interim head coaches promoted since 2000, you're looking at Dick LeBeau, Dave McGinnis, Mike Trice, Tom Cable, shout out to the Raiders, Mike Singletary, Leslie Frazier, Jason Garrett, Romeo Crennel, Mike Mularkey, and Doug Marrone. Those are all of them, and I kind of laugh because they seem to come in bunches, like 2000s, and then 2008, and then there's the 2010s, and then 2011, right? Like, they come in bunches. If you're wondering, well, Mitch, how did they do as a head coach? Dick LeBeau as a head coach had an 8-24 record. Dave McGinnis was 16-32 as a head coach. Mike Trice, 32-32. Tom Cable, 13-19. Mike Singletary, 13-18, and he took his pants off. Leslie Frazier, 18-29. Jason Garrett had the best record here, 80-64, but he clapped way too much. Romeo Crennel, 2-14. Mike Mularkey, 18-14. And then Doug Marrone, 22-42. As you can see, when coaches were interim and then promoted to head coaches, history has shown that it hasn't worked out the way that a lot of y'all are hoping that it might work out for Antonio Pierce. I get it. Every situation is totally different. But it's not only about the regular season, right? The ultimate goal is always a Super Bowl. The ultimate goal is always a Lombardi. And 5 coaches have made at least one playoff game. Doug Marrone was the only coach to get to a conference championship game, but no coach that started as an interim and then was promoted as a head coach has ever reached the Super Bowl. We'll see if maybe Antonio Pierce can be that. Here's a random chat fact. The Raiders have had 4 interim head coaches since 2000, which is the most in the NFL during that time. Some of y'all might call it a chat fact. Some of y'all might call it a fun fact. Me knowing that, it might just be a fact because it's not fun always having to look for a new head coach every single season. The 4 interim head coaches since 2000 for the Raiders. Tom Cable went 4-8. Tony Sperano went 3-9. Shout out to Papa Bisaccia, 7-5. Raiders didn't keep him. And as it stands right now, Antonio Pierce has got a 2-2 record. I laugh. Vincenzo says, yeah, I think that's just facts. You're probably right. But this is the one thing. What Mark Davis, he's going to have to say, right? And Davis had this to say this week. This time, I don't really have anybody in mind that would potentially prejudice my thinking, so to speak. My thought process is wide open, and there's a very good chance that the head coach and general manager that we have right now may end up getting the job. So, like, that's Mark Davis simply saying, like, right now as it stands, nobody is off the top of my mind. Nobody's whispering in my ear. We're going to see how the season goes, and we're going to roll with the punches. If I could get one favor, Mark, I would rather you ask me and the nation instead of whoever the hell told you to go hire Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, because if only you would have listened. Maybe, Mark, and to everyone out there, you can watch this video here. I got some Josh McDaniels replacements in terms of some of the top candidates from an offensive mind and a defensive mind to be the next Raiders head coach. I want to say that there's 11 names listed in this video. And if you want to go check out our top GM candidates video, because if Mark's saying that, hey, I don't really have anybody off the top of my mind, my job here on the Raiders Report is to give my opinion. My job here on the Raiders Report is to give you what I think is best for this team. And the best part about having a YouTube show that has been around as long as us, I know this for a cold, hard fact. If the Raiders would have listened to everything that we have recommended on here, from draft, free agency, coaching, hiring, we'd be in a much better situation than what we are in now. But I do think brighter days are ahead. I will end this show with this because, as always, if anybody wants to give me a follow on IG, Twitter, I'm at MitchellRents365. Vincent Bonsignore sent out this puppy on November 28th that said, hearing a name to keep an eye on when the Raiders go through their head coaching search process, former Stanford head coach and former Raiders assistant coach David Shaw. I replied to this tweet simply saying that I'm hoping that this one came from Carissa Thompson because it makes no sense for the Raiders to add David Shaw. I'll also say that I've been doing this show long enough, and here's the thing. Every time, and I mean every time the Raiders are looking for a new head coach, David Shaw's name comes up. If the Raiders hire David Shaw, I'm going to be one ticked off dude because it makes absolutely positively 0 sense for the Raiders to bring in David Shaw.